From makeup artistry to editing to acting and distribution and everything in between, Sacramento Film Works is your one-stop shop to all things filmmaking. I'm your host, Klein Moore.
And I'm your co-host, Kenesha Allen. Sit tight. We've got an exciting show lined up for you today. Stay tuned.
On today's episode, The Film Director, our guest has a unique style that makes him one of a kind in more ways than one.
That's right, Klein. He has a sense of filmmaking that many of you will find very interesting. The name especially. We'd like to welcome Mr. Mike Carroll to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
And the name is Naked Filmmaking.
Naked Filmmaking. Tell us what that is.
Well, Naked Filmmaking, first, it's a catchy title.
Sure.
People will remember it. Hopefully when they go onto Amazon, they can remember it later on. But naked filmmaking is an aesthetic in that when most people make a film, whether it's a studio, whether they're making it for a place called Sacramento, they're making it in a crew with other people, someone who's the director, someone who's the writer, someone who is the cameraman, the sound man. And when the film is finished and showing, if someone's watching it and saying, oh, I enjoyed your film, I couldn't hear something in this one scene, or the sound was a little tinny, or maybe it was a little dark in this area. Well, the director can then say, yeah, well, you know, they were still learning or whatever.
Blame it on the sound guy.
Okay.
Right.
But in my case, I am the crew. I do the entire film myself.
Okay.
So the aesthetic is that it's like an artist doing a painting. I do the whole thing so that, like a piece of art as a film, you're standing naked before the audience. I have no one to blame and nothing to hide behind. So that's the idea behind naked filmmaking, that you are putting your whole self out there.
And then to kind of bounce off of that, you talked about the negatives, but then there's also probably some positives, right? You kind of get to, because you own it, you get to do the way you want to do it, right?
Well, I do the whole thing. I write it, I produce it with my wife, who also acts in it. She's a wonderful actor. We pay for it ourselves. We don't go looking for investors. We have a personal limit on how much we're going to spend on a film. Okay. Then when I direct the film and I shoot it, I do the sound, I edit it. Then when it's done, I'm also in charge of the website, the posters, everything.
Everything.
Yes.
Now, you also have a bare-bones approach to working with your actors. And really, in a nutshell, your technique is to do nothing.
Nothing. Well,
explain.
Well, the key when you're making a film, and this doesn't matter what scale of film, any director will tell you this, that the most important element when you're doing a movie is your casting. Because you can have a great script, but if you don't have great actors, then the script is going to fall apart.
Right.
You can have a mediocre script, but if you've got great actors, they will make it sing. So for me, the whole thing gets down into casting, who you're going to have to play the parts. So one of the keys that I use for that is that I draw from theater-trained actors.
Okay.
I don't look for actors who say that they want to be in movies. I go for actors who've worked on the stage, because the keys of that is that they've generally had a lot of experience. They've worked in all kinds of different shows, comedies,
Sure.
dramas, whatever, and they're used to learning lots and lots of dialogue. Now, my films don't have a lot of dialogue, but the important thing of actors is that, for instance, when an actor is training for a play, they'll be rehearsing for 3 to 6 weeks.
Sure.
Whereas someone who just wants to work in movies, they'll show up at the set, and most of the time, they won't even know their lines.
Okay.
By going with a theater-trained actor, they come, they're on time, they know their lines, and they have so much experience that
it's pretty much intuitive to them. So that then when we are doing a scene, when I direct with the actors that I've chosen, we'll get together and I'll say, okay, let me hear the lines. Let me hear how you're going to do it. And the two of them will start bouncing off because almost all the scenes are two actors. And I'll listen to it, and I may listen to it all the way through. And about the only thing I'll usually say is, that's really nice, just bring it down a little bit.
Less is more.
Exactly, because
Okay.
I want everything, I want, when you watch one of my films, I want you to feel like they're not saying dialogue. I want you to feel like you're watching real people. And that's one of the key things when I say to the actors is that I don't want to see the acting, and I don't want to feel like I'm watching someone saying lines. I want to feel like I'm around a couple of people that are just talking.
So you allow them to kind of infuse themselves as well, right?
Yeah.
So you want their personality to kind of shine through in the character. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
when I'm working with actors, generally they will choose a characterization.
Okay.
And so it's that character that they'll bring through. Now, certainly everything you're going to do is some extension of yourself. But if I have good actors, one thing I have found with good actors is that I'll have a scene sometimes. And I detail all of this in my book. There was one time where I had a scene between the two actors, and one of the actors said, oh, God, I can't get this one line right. And I said to her, I'm sorry, I did not write this very well. Let me change it. And she said, no, I can make it work. And she worked on this line for a moment or two, and then in the next take, she did it. And she made something that I feel I should have written better, but she made it so believable. Okay. So that's what I meant about a good actor will make you sound better. And also I felt that she was so completely natural that whatever she did was interesting. And I think it's so interesting, it's so important to be interested in what an actor is doing. And I don't tell them, you have to get every word down. I say, you can change it around any way you want so that it's comfortable for you.
Believable.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, just make me believe it. Make me feel like, you know, like when you show up at the set to shoot, there's always a bit of chit chat. I just want it to be on the level of that. I want it to be real, like two people talking. And after about the first take or two of when we're shooting on it, they're totally in that. So I don't have to tell them anything after that.
Because they're in the zone.
That's exactly it. And that's what I call it. I call it a zone of getting them into a zone of comfort. And when I have everything written out in the script, as far as the dialogue and a general loose layout of what they're going to be doing. And then when I'm working with the actors, once I say, okay, quite often we'll be doing a rehearsal, and when they're going through the lines, and if they are exactly in the zone in the beginning, I'll say, okay, wait, this is good. Let's just start shooting.
Okay.
I like that.
And then we just start going. And I'll just say, you know, you're going to start around here, and you'll wind up in this area. But then I leave them alone, because if I tell them, I want you to go from here, I want you to end there, I want you to be looking this way so that you can catch a certain light, you're taking away. You're already depriving them of what they could be, of their art.
Now, have you had a film that you've allowing them to kind of infuse themselves and kind of take it away a little bit? Have you had a film change direction before because of that?
No.
No?
No, because everything is written out.
Okay.
So we know exactly where we're going to be going.
Okay.
And that's not to say that I won't be doing rewriting on scenes as we're going.
Sure.
Or I might change something. I absolutely will. And sometimes on the first film I did with actors, I was rewriting constantly because I was realizing how much less I had to write and how much better they were able at communicating the story.
Oh, I'm sorry. However, it sounds like by casting correctly, then you take a lot of the weight off of your shoulders and doing the work directing. Yet you're still doing quite a bit. In fact, you're doing everything. So talk to us. We have some equipment here. What are you using and how are you doing lighting and sound and camera? Because normally that's a whole slew of folks.
Yeah.
Talk to us.
Well, I'm a cameraman by trade. Professionally, I'm a TV news cameraman.
Locally news?
Locally, I work at KCRA. I've been there for 24 years, and this is my 30th year of TV news.
Wow.
So you know your stuff.
Well, I think so. I try to. But the main thing for me that my career has taught me is that the most, there's kind of the 10,000 hour rule, that if you're doing something for 10,000 hours, then you don't have to think about it anymore. Right. It's in your system.
Second nature.
Yeah, and for me, TV news has been my film school. So it's not like I went to school to learn how to do this, because I didn't go to any school. I started working in a mailroom and worked my way up. But if you only go to school to become a cameraman, then you're only able to shoot when you have a film to shoot on. So you might shoot 10 days a year, maybe 30 days a year. In my case, I shoot 5 days a week. And I'm also editing. And also as a cameraman for news, I'm also running the sound. So it's built into me. I know how to do all this stuff.
Oh, so show us how it works.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is that this is the camera that I have to shoot on. And it's a DSLR. And it's something that you could buy at Fry's, at Best Buy, anywhere. Everything that I use is consumer grade. You could buy it from any place. And when I shoot, I can only say that my shooting is the same as my acting. In that my actors, I really love the method. And that they get into the character. And that when you're in the character, then you don't have to think about how to say a line. You don't have to think of how to react, because that's the actor.
Sure.
And so when I'm shooting, whether I'm shooting with lights or whether I'm shooting with all natural light. My first film was all natural light. My second film was set at night. Everything had to be lit. But I would try to light in broad scale so that I might have my lights 20 or 30 feet away from the actors on either side, so I'm lighting an area, a space, and I'm not trying to fill them up entirely. I'm trying to take advantage of the shadows, because I think in shadow there's mystery, and I think it's much more interesting that way. So when I shoot with the actors, whether it's lit or whether it's natural light, we start out on a scene, and since they're theater-trained actors and they're used to going for an hour or 2 hours at a time, when we do our scenes, when we start, we go all the way through. And it doesn't matter how long the scene is. It might be a minute, it might be 7 minutes. From the time we start, we go all the way through, even if there's a mistake.
Okay. And next we have a clip that's going to show us what naked filmmaking is really all about.
What are you looking at?
I'm thinking I'm looking at a Kentucky girl.
So Mike, that is naked filmmaking in its essence. So, I mean, where did you get the idea to even process or do a film like this? I mean, where did you get the idea to even start doing films completely by yourself?
Actually, in high school.
In high school.
My heroes. I mean, when I was in high school, it was in 1970s, early 1970s, and there were a couple of filmmakers who were. There's always the hyphenates. You know, you've heard of the producer-director, the writer-director, the writer-producer-director, but there were only a handful of cameramen of filmmakers in the whole world who were also their own cameramen. One of those was a French filmmaker named Claude Lelouch, who made a movie in 1966 that won the Oscar for foreign language film called A Man and a Woman. And he did all of that. In fact, he also financed it and edited it. Okay. And it's a stunning film. It still holds up. But I thought, that's just really the way to do things. Because I noticed films have so many different looks. And I was really studying filmmakers at that time. And I would notice you'd see a director and a cameraman team. And they'd have a great look. But then when that same director worked with a different cameraman, it looked completely different.
Sure.
So I thought the only way to have things consistent is if the director is also the cameraman.
You do it yourself.
Well, and also I have to say that I got this great book about filmmaking, and in it, every single shot of the director, he's looking through a viewfinder of a camera. So I thought, oh, well, they shoot their own films. Mm-hmm. I later found out that they didn't. So I kind of went through the whole thing of learning how to become a photographer and a cameraman and getting into news, and then later finding out that they hired somebody else. By that time, I'd already decided, I wanted to do it myself.
Okay. And this is all covered in your book, Naked Filmmaking. And obviously we have a copy here, but where can you pick up our copy? Where?
Amazon.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon for the whole world, in both the print version and also digital. You can have it on your phone.
Now in this, it's less of a how-to and more of how you do.
Exactly. I don't tell people how they should make a movie. There are tons of these books and film schools out there that teach you how to make a film, how to raise money, how to get a crew, and all of that. And frankly, I feel that they're setting you up for a big fall, because it all gets down to money and getting people together. And I think the hardest thing, if you're around filmmakers or people that work in film, they say you just raise a couple $100,000 and make a movie.
Just a couple $100,000.
Sure. Yeah. And I always counter saying, okay, great, raise $100 by Friday. And then they say, how am I going to do that? Well, if you can't get $100 by Friday, then you're not going to get a couple $100,000 to make a movie.
Right.
So my films I've made, and I've had a limit of, I'll do it for $10,000. Because it's more expensive to buy a car. Okay. But I figure if I can make a movie for $10,000, then I can pay that off. Okay. And also, since I sell the camera at the end, that brings some of the costs down. And you can pay $10,000 off in 2 years if you put it on a credit card, sure, or if you're able to save it up. And then that's just been my approach. And as I said earlier, I lose my train of thought, and I just did.
That's what. Well, what we're going to do next is, obviously we've got a studio audience that's love to ask some questions about your vehicle and how you've gotten to where you're going, and so we'll come back soon with that portion of our show. Sacramento Film Works is sponsored by the Northern California Filmmakers Coalition, which provides filmmakers an opportunity to learn and network with professionals in the filmmaking industry in the Sacramento region. Join us each Wednesday at 6 p.m. at Access Sacramento, 4623 T Street, Suite A. We'll see you in the movies. And we're back with Sacramento Film Works and our guest, Mike Carroll, the director, and we're going to Kenesha in our studio audience.
Thank you, Klein. That's right. I'm here in our studio audience. Some of our guests have a few questions for Mr. Mike Carroll, and our first question comes from Samoria.
My name is Samoria Lemuse, and Mike, I have a question for you. Now, you did mention that you like to use actresses and actors from the theater. Has there ever been a time that you allowed someone else to come in, or is it exclusive, the actors and actresses from the theater?
No, it's not exclusive. I think maybe one or two of the actors that that have been in my films haven't done theater work, but he did. If I have it right, he had done an awful lot of films, and he had done an awful lot of different things, and he was just so intriguing that I asked if he would be interested in doing a part, and his name's Galen Howard, and he's done an awful lot of short films that have played, especially in film festivals here, mostly in comedies, and he jumped at the chance to do this because it was a scene in Night Beats, which was not a comedy at all. It was a completely dramatic part, and he just sailed it out of the park. And I have to say, people that are good at comedy, I found are really good at drama. Because I think most comedy comes out of pain. Yes. So a good comedian has a great well to pull from. So that's the only instance I can think of. But for the most part, I've just gone with theater actors because they have such a wealth of experience that they bring in. And I'm just always fascinated by what they do.
Okay, well, thank you.
So Sacramento is obviously not known for filmmaking. How has it been working and making your films here in Sacramento, as opposed to LA or somewhere?
Well, if I was shooting in LA, I'd have a lot more problems. Just because LA is so movie oriented.
Right.
That even if you're making a student film, you might need to get permits somewhere. I don't pull permits. I don't ask. I ask for a property owner to let me shoot in their place. But if I'm shooting out on the streets, I'm just going to shoot out on the streets. But part of the reason I can get away with that is that I'm one person. I don't tie up traffic. I'm not going to tie up a sidewalk. And at least the last film that I made, which was shot on the streets around the city, we didn't start shooting till 10 o'clock or midnight. By that time, the city's pretty quiet. You can get away with it. We even found, also, if you're shooting at night, big thing, road cones. Get those orange road cones, put them around the perimeter of where you're shooting. Even a police car will go around your road cones.
I like that. Good tip. Good tip. Thank you. And so our next question comes from Alice, and she's actually a former anchor woman here in Sacramento as well.
Mike and I actually work together at KCRA. And I'm curious, Mike, news style is so different. So by day, you're doing what we used to call run and gun. You know, you're out there getting everything that bleeds and, you know, rushing it back to the station. And then on your other career, you are the cinematographer, the artist. What are some of the differences? I mean, you're doing both. And as you said, you actually got your first lessons by being a news photographer, but it sounds like they're so different. So how are they alike, and how do you make the transition?
I frankly find them to be exactly the same. You know, the one difference I would say is that when you're shooting news, it tends to be more wide shots. And when you're doing documentary, you're going to have more wide shots because you don't want to miss some action. Whereas for me, for drama, it's close-ups and telephotos. So more like when I'm shooting news, I'm going to be in close on the action. I'm going to be, because I want to get that sound and I want to be able to convey what's going on to the viewer. Whereas when I'm shooting a movie, I am really far away. I am shooting on telephoto, maybe from 15 feet away. I get distance, but I'm looking at the faces. I can honestly say that to me when I'm shooting, that's about the only difference, because both times I'm responding to the moment. And Woody Allen had a great thing when he was asked, you know, when he's making his films, you know, what is his method? And he says, you know, I just show up, I get good actors, and then we just respond to what they do. I kind of taken that to heart. That, as I was saying earlier, I have the actors, they make me look good, and then I just try to film them as interestingly as I can to capture the moment and to capture their performance. So.
And again, we'd like to thank Mr. Mike Carroll for coming on to our show. And for the viewers at home, sit tight and stay tuned, because up next we're going to show you an actress that's shining in our Sacramento spotlight.
If you'd like to be a member of our studio audience, to meet and greet film industry professionals, visit our website at ncfc.tv.
Welcome to the Spotlight segment of our show where we highlight local talent. Today we have a beautiful actress who's been a stand-in for Miss Octavia Spencer, Hollywood actress, and she also played in the Fruitvale Station. Danae, that was your character, right?
Yes,
I'd like to welcome Miss Jonez Kane.
Thank you for having me, Kanisha. I'd like to first start off by saying thank you for having me out on Sacramento Film Works. It's definitely an honor.
Well, thank you for coming to the show. We appreciate it. So let's just jump right in. Tell us some of the projects that you're working on right now.
Oh, well, independent-wise, I've been doing pretty good here in the Bay Area. Have a premiere coming up. The Shop movie was produced and written by Sean Michael Cunningham and Basketball 316, Scraper Boys. I have several independent films coming out. But as far as major films, I had a small role in Fruitvale Station.
Okay, awesome. Now, you wear many hats, okay? You sing, and you also did the casting for The Shop, right?
Yes, yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, really, I'm a songwriter, and you know, it was tough getting the music out there, and my family encouraged me to start singing myself, and I wanted to sing something positive, something where people could be inspired, and it was really tough to get people interested in that. So I went for it myself. I'll be dropping my gospel R&B EP in July. And as far as the casting, that started off just with me wanting to help my friends. Once I was casted onto a project, I would speak to the producer and find out, did you do well with the previous casting director? Did you fill every role that you needed? And most times I would hear no. And I would start just referring my friends because I want to help them too. And that's how it started for me. Then those same casting the producers, they would call back upon me to cast their next film. So just kind of happened.
All right, there you go. So as an actress, where do you see yourself being in the next 5 years?
Oh, in the next 5 years, I hope that I am constantly at Sundance, Cannes, LA film festivals, you know, nominated for Oscars. You know, that's what I want for myself. And I know it's probably big and is out there, but that's my dream. And I pray really hard and I work hard, and I feel in my heart it's going to happen for me.
Well, it is. I mean, you certainly have the drive. And then just real quick before we go, how can people keep in contact with you? How can they keep up with the projects that you're working on?
Well, I can be found on IMDb, which is the International Movie Database. Also, you can check out my website at artistecard.com/Jonez Kane, and Facebook. I'm definitely on Facebook, Twitter. You know, check me out.
Well, good luck to you in your endeavors, Jonez. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. We truly appreciate it, and we will see you on the big screen.
Thank you.
And that's our show for today. Sacramento Film Works has been brought to you in partnership with the Northern California Filmmakers Coalition and Access Sacramento. We'd like to thank our guest, Mr. Mike Carroll, our spotlight guest, Ms. Jonez Kane, and also our studio audience, including VIP studio audience member, Miss Alice Scott. My name is Klein Moore, and I'm your host.
And I'm your co-host, Kenesha Allen. Thank you so much. You've been watching Sacramento Film Works, where we show you how film works.